Hi, good evening, and welcome to a Barmy Army podcast number 60. Tonight, the plan was we were going to talk about the games against Everton and the upcoming game against Leicester. But unless you've been living under a rock for the last couple of hours, the breaking news coming out of the club is that Casey Stoney resigns as Manchester United women's manager. Tonight, I'm joined by Fiona, and yes, back for a second week on the trot is Iain. Evening, both. How you all doing?
Evening, fine, thank you.
Yeah,
that's a lie from Iain. But we'll get on to that. The reason Ian's back, in case any of you were wondering, is because at the end of last week's pod, there was a question posed to him and he never got time to answer it. And he was going to answer it. But I think we can just throw away the script. Ian, you'll just have to answer it on Twitter. Evening, Debs, Karen, and Sang. Congratulations, Sang, on Chelsea winning the WSL, he says behind gritty teeth. Right, let's start with the news. Fiona, first reaction when you heard it?
shocked, but also not shocked at the same time. I'm kind of shocked that it's come out now and we've still got one game to play, but maybe that's kind of good because then the players can give a proper send off. But I'm kind of, I don't know, if you look at some of her interviews, particularly the more recent, like the last few months, Casey doesn't look like she's the same enthusiastic manager that we've seen in previous seasons, and I wonder if that's kind of one of the reasons why she might have gone. But I think first reaction has to be shock because, like, you can't think of the United women team without thinking of Casey. She's such an influential person, not just in obviously on the pitch, but off the pitch, making sure the players are happy, making sure there's that good team relationship. Yeah, it's a slightly weird one.
Yeah, Iain, your first reaction?
I was devastated. I'll be honest with you. But again, I wasn't surprised. Unfortunately, I don't know why. But yeah, it just felt. There's a reason also we're not going to be able to say goodbye to her properly because the last game is before we even get back into a stadium. So she always had time and came and talked to us at the end of the game, especially when we were away. And not to, and we haven't got the chance to say thank you to her for all the work she's done over the 3 years. So, yeah, devastating, but unfortunately, I felt something, as I said to you earlier a couple of weeks ago, it just didn't feel right. The passion wasn't there. She was talking in the third person times, and it just didn't feel like her heart was committed anymore.
Yeah, it's come out of to use an American term, it's come out of left field. This completely. I mean, no one really saw it coming. Evening, John Neville. Yeah, what a shocker today's been. If good evening, he's in shock. And I think we Sang he was going to come and gloat a bit about winning the league, but now he's worried as heck for us. And we'll get into that a little bit later. I suppose, reading the statement and everything that United put out and what Casey said, she's going to have some family time for a bit. I suppose after the year we've had, you can kind of understand it. For me as a football fan, I'm a United fan first. I mean, Fiona, you were there at the onset of the WSL. You've been to WSL games from the very beginning. So you probably would have seen Casey play. Is she, for United fans, she's been the best manager. She's probably the best manager in the league, we would say, as United fans. Where would you put Casey in the rank of managers?
I think she'd definitely be up there. We don't necessarily always get the results and all that kind of thing, But I think overall, as a manager, definitely up there because she's shown how much she cares about the players. It's not just yeah, you go out and do your job on the football pitch. She's all about the relationship and making sure that the players are happy, playing gets the best out of them. She's very experienced as a player, not necessarily as a manager. This is her first proper job, but she has a lot of experience on the pitch in big games, and I think that was essential for our very young squad in the championship season, where there wasn't a lot of experience, and she could help develop those players. She can say, "This is what I would do on the pitch," which I think definitely helps with the relationship. And she's very interested and enthusiastic about growing the game and growing the team. She's not come to do a job just to get as kind of like as a stepping stone job. This was full commitment as well. So I would definitely put her up there. She might not be like I'd probably put her in the top 5. Don't think she's number 1, but I've definitely put her in the top 5, and that's without my United bias.
Yeah. I mean, Sang says, for me, I put her on the same tier as Joe and Carla. I have to put Emma ahead, but I'm a Chelsea fan. Yeah, no, I agree, Sang, with that. But she knows the women's game like no other. Iain, I suppose the tough questions are going to come out, and Karen has kind of made a reference to this with devastated why they set up the team. There's no proper commitment from the owners. Forgetting the Glazer side just for a while, because according to articles that you're reading on Twitter and everything else, this was due to happen a couple of months ago. So before all the fallout with the Glazers was put in. Where does this leave us as a club now?
In limbo, if I'm honest. You look at the manager market at the moment, who's available, who's not available. There aren't any real, big names to look at it. You could, you're someone that you think, wow, that's an impressive person, someone who we want to bring in. Then you've also got to think of Casey's probably done the recruitment for this summer on the basis of Casey leading the team into next season. So whoever comes in is not really going to have a chance to stamp authority on it, and it's going to put us back. So next season, where we were thinking, let's try and push from 4th to 3rd, is now becoming more of a case of, can we keep 4th and not slip? I think it's going to put us back a bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, people in the comments are saying this puts us back at least a year from Deborah. Jonathan Ball says this puts her back to 2.5 years already. Sang, we're in trouble. He's saying the manager from Wolfsburg is available, but with these conditions, would he come? We don't know. If they're saying it's not only losing Casey, besides it's known the commitment with the Glazers is near to 0. And Deborah's fans, we have to stick together. It's going to be tough. And good evening, Amrat, and I hope you're safe and well. I'm not going to get into the whole Glazer side of things because this show could go on for a week and a half if we do that. I want to stick to just the footballing side of it. And I know people are going to automatically go to the Glazer side of stuff. Casey, if you're reading reports, and like I said, Casey's now being linked with a job in San Diego. So with the question of where do Tobin and Kristen go next year, they probably end up going to San Diego now, I think is one of those. Going back to the manager thing, Iain, there's 2 things I will say. Thank God Jose Mourinho has just taken the job at Roma, because I don't want him as the women's manager. Even though it would be quite fun to have Jose as the women's manager. Number 2, can you see them, Fiona, bringing someone through the club like Michael Carrick or a Fletch or can I, just throw a name out there, a Mike Phelan?
Well, it could work. We've seen at City, Gareth Taylor, he came across from their academy side. Didn't really have too much knowledge of the women's game. So it kind of was a slow start, but when they got going, they did reasonably well. So it could work. I just think our team, sorry, hasn't been around for very long, and so I think it might be a risk a bit too big to take that kind of leap. There'd be a great coach or something like that, but as a manager, I don't know. Depends, because Casey obviously gets quite involved in like transfers and things like that, and if you're coming across to the women's game, don't really have much knowledge about it, obviously that then becomes a bit more difficult. But I don't know. I don't think we'd see somebody like Charlotte Healy stepping up. I think it would be somebody with a bit more experience from the men's side of the academy. I don't know about Carrick or somebody like that. They haven't got much experience, but Casey didn't have much experience either. So I think there's pros and cons either way. But like Iain has said, if we were going for somebody who's established in the women's game, who's actually available that hasn't moved to a different club or is leaving the WSL for like personal reasons, that kind of thing. The only person I can really think of off the top of my head is Matt Beard, and I don't know if we'd go for him. I personally wouldn't be. I think that would be a step back from having Casey. The other people are probably in contract and don't know how the club would feel about having to pay out their contract.
Yeah, I guess an interesting point that you brought up, Fiona and Iain, I want you to, Casey always tries to get her recruitment done in advance. Now, as I said before, if you're reading certain reports, she wanted to do this a couple of months ago. She wanted to resign then. Do you think she's been planning her summer recruitment, or do you think she made her mind up and she kind of knew, well, I'm not going to plan, I'll leave that to the incoming manager?
It's hard to say, but Casey's on record as saying they normally start November, December time, looking at the summer and their prospects and try and get it all nailed down early. Okay, a couple of months ago, so we're probably talking end of February, beginning of March as a time frame where she was contemplating quitting then. Don't know what she's done, if we're honest. So if she has done some business, then it's going to be a shame for the person who's come in, because they're coming on the promises of Casey and what Casey's vision is. But then if she hasn't brought anybody in and it's going to be up to the new manager, it's going to be a little bit too late. We're already in the middle of May. You've got June, and then half the international world are off to Japan for an Olympic Games, with leagues then starting again in August, September. So there's not a lot of time for Casey's replacement to do any business, if we're honest, especially not freebies, because they would have already been tied up. So it's going to have to be transfers, spending money. And if one of the reasons why Casey's left is because she didn't have the backing of the budget from the board, then where's the money going to be for transfers? It's not going to be there.
Yeah. Now, Jonathan Ball asked the question, can we keep hold of the players who keep hold of fourth? And I want to come on to that, but I want to make it, I just want to ask a question to Fiona. A couple of months ago, United released a statement saying that they've now got a director of football in John Murtagh. Now, John worked closely with Casey. We know this at the very beginning of the onset of the women's team. John helped do the recruitment of the original 21. Now, do you think Casey has gone to John and saying, look, I'm going. Here's a list of who I think this club needs for next season. And do you and if that's the case, then whoever we bring in, I have no issue if John Merton already knows who the club need. Where would you stand on that?
I was going to actually raise this. Having a director of football should help in this situation. We know the kind of football we want to play as a United team. He should be making sure we bring in players that suit that style, and making sure, I suppose, as well, that the next manager, plays a similar style. I know we haven't got anybody yet, but we don't want to get a new manager completely changes our style of football, doesn't suit the players we've got. And so in my head, I was thinking that should hopefully help in that regard. The fact that he had experience getting the players for the very initial squad for the first season, I think that helps even more. He's got that experience with the women's game, of getting the players in and knowing kind of the players we've got. I think that the main issue in my eyes is something that Iain touched on, is players would have been coming to United thinking they'll be coached by Casey, and hearing all the positive things players have said about her as a manager, whether that be, I think Tobin has come out and said stuff in the past, other players have said things that's got into the press about how great she is as a manager. If you don't know who the new manager is going to be yet, don't know how long it'll take the club to find somebody, or just knowing that it's not Casey, that might scare people away, because you're not going to be coached by this person who is great about you as a player. It'd be like if Jose were to come. I imagine some people would be terrified because of some of the comments he's made about some of the men's players. It'd be the equivalent for any women's manager, women's team manager that come across. I don't know if there are many that's very similar to Jose. I think he is one of a kind, but that kind of, I think that would still play in some of the transfers.
Yeah, Iain, I'm just going to literally run through comments because they're coming quickly and I'm trying to keep up. Sang says, seriously, will players stay without Casey, Honor, Jackie, Leah? Will they stay? Then he goes on, would any of these managers be Casey's equal? She had a 5-year plan, now halfway through, you're back to square one. Deborah says, any incoming manager knows the issues, going to have to throw money at players to get them in now. Namrata says, our track record for replacing legendary managers isn't good, and we don't even have a next player like Ollie. Agreed. Ifa says, I can't help to think the strange issue with LJ is related to this. Too strange both things to be a coincidence. Deborah then goes, would a new manager not want to bring in their own choices? And then Deb says, do we know if John Murtagh has any role within the team? Farrah Williams has worked with tough conditions all her life and has a new level of coaching experience. So, right, Iain. Casey came in, she won the championship. We had a curtailed season last year, and we've finished our first one. Has Casey, everyone has the plaudits of Casey. Casey, you've seen everything on Twitter. Do we need to bring in a similar type of manager to Casey? Or is it time, or do we need a new approach? Because one of the things, and I'll say this, and we were talking about this before we came on air, is that a lot of people have criticised Casey's way of playing. We've only got one kind of tactic. Now, Ifa goes and mentions LJ. Now, at this point, we don't know LJ's going. It's a huge rumour, but usually there's no smoke without fire. If LJ wants to go, that's up to LJ. We're not there to hold it. But last season, one of the major things that people were saying was that Casey plays the ball to LJ all the time. Do we need someone who can come in and, dare I say it, have more than one set of tactics?
Casey obviously is still very young in the managerial game. Her first managerial job was with us, so she's still learning about her. She's still learning about herself in the management game. She'll take things from her time here, learn from them, and wherever she ends up next, wherever that may be, as you said with the Dreamers of San Diego, then she'll be better for that. New manager coming in, I would hope that whoever we do bring in has got at least some experience, some managerial experience. We can't bring in someone cold again, if that makes sense. At least with Casey, with the squad in the championship, they all had a chance to learn together and gel together, which kind of works, because if we're honest, the players we had in the championship, we should have always won and cantered the championship. But so we can't bring in someone green. Whoever comes in is going to have to come in with experience of the WSL or the game at a high level, be it in Germany, France, or the US, for example. So we will have to be able to play in more than one way. There will be times where we have to sit back and defend, but there are obviously times where we've said, why aren't we attacking more? We have said that this season, that we've had chances to go and score bucket loads and we only score one or two. So I would hope whoever does come in comes in with experience and knows when to play attacking football and when to build from the back.
Just going on to some of the comments about the Farrah Williams. Deborah says, very interesting Namrata. Sean, great shout Namrata. Jonathan Ball, certainly like her Moxie Namrata. Deborah then goes on, let's say something controversial. Has Casey achieved much with us? The championship season was easy with our squad. Last year we went backwards. And also this. This what? Sang then says, with due respect, with the players you have and the injuries that have happened, I cannot envision how another style of play could have been used. You're punched above your weight, far, far above. And Deborah, Sang then goes, Deborah, I thought Coach Stoney did well. The squad is light. Injuries didn't help. I guess you're right. You're right, Ian. Yeah, you want a manager who comes in who is ready to go straight away. Right now we're going to be looking at our phones and wondering what's happening, and every time there's a statement released, is it the women's manager? United will have to move fast on this. One of the points that people keep coming back to, and on the comments and everything else, is the facilities that the women have got. They're not great. We'll all say that they're not great, but no one envisaged the year that we've had. And I think as much as people are going to go on about what's happening currently at the club, this last 15, 16 months has taken everyone with a bit of a hit. So they started off at LSV, they had to move to the Cliff, and now they're at Carrington. Is that the biggest of all the problems you see, Fiona?
It's not the training facilities and moving this between them. I think to me it's more the lack of commitment. We obviously didn't expect COVID when we started the women's team, but we should have expected that at some point we would need to have somewhere decent to train, of high quality to train, whether that be at Carrington or the Cliff or whatever. And they did say in one of the first press releases that the women are going to play at the Cliff once it's been renovated. But has the renovation started? And I think that's more the issue. It shows a bit of a lack of commitment from the behind the scenes staff, the whether that be the Glazers or Ed or whoever you want to blame it with, whoever's in charge of the women's team in general or the funding, whoever you want to blame it with, it just shows a bit of a lack of commitment in a very public way. We obviously can't see what's happening behind closed doors. They might be saying to Casey, I don't know, you're not getting any money for your any more money for your transfer budget or whatever. We can see very publicly the training facilities and the lack of quality in them, and I think that would then set alarm bells off. If you're a new manager coming in, or considering coming to United, because who doesn't want to manage United, and then you hear these kind of things, you go, well, actually, if I'm not going to get the support that I need to get the results behind the scenes, why would I go there? And I think that's more my issue. Carrington was designed whether before the women's team existed. So how can you plan to have space for the women's team if you didn't think you were going to have the women's team then? But it's that we're now 3 seasons in, and nothing seems to have changed that much. That's my main concern.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points on that, and before I come to you on this, Ian, I'm just going to go through some of the comments. Sang, free agent players are now being snapped up right now. The new manager needs to land, as Ian says, and hits the ground running. Namrata goes on to say, I'm sure another manager could replace Casey and be successful, but nobody can replace Casey emotionally. Ifa says, agree, while top players were available, the team were a top 1 or 2. No team in the world can stand 5 starter attackers injured. Deborah says to Namrata, that's the issue, Namrata. Casey's been United women from day one. This hurts. And she does raise a point which we'll come on to later on, Fiona's being on the committee. Rest assured the BA will be asking questions about this when we sit down with the club next. John Ball agrees with you. Deborah, it's not just the lack of resource, but the poor budget as well. Nowhere near the top 3. How can we compete? So true, says Jonathan Ball. And Sang says, we managed to find a place for our ladies at Cobham. Carrington can be used. It just takes planning. Ian, I want to go back to a point you made before, and actually, with everything that's going on, Namrata says it. Casey is a people manager. She manages the players as people. Take Lotta, for example. Take the situation we believe that's going on with LJ. Has Casey, in a way, and I'm just going to say, has she been a little bit too soft? Or has she dealt with it exactly right? Because, forget, if we weren't in the pandemic this year, we could, would we be in a different position? Or would Casey have gone earlier? Those are questions we won't answer. But do you agree with the way she's dealt with things this season?
She's doing what she believes is best. She's always been, as you said, a person first. She's even said that in interviews. These aren't just footballers; these are human beings, and you have to treat them like human beings. Don't get me wrong. If Casey needs to be hard, she will be hard. If she needs to tell someone that they're doing something wrong, or she needs to give them a hairdryer, she will. That is Casey. That we've seen her on the touchline and what she's done. I just remember her at halftime against against Spurs last season in the fog, where she stared down the referee for 5 minutes at halftime. The referee refused to leave the pitch.
A brilliant part. I love that. Still love that now.
So I think Casey has kind of got the balance right. If she's where she needs to be, that mother figure, if that's the term to use, and put her arm around someone or help someone, or realize that someone is struggling. Like Lotta was homesick, and she made it possible for Lotta to go home. You've got to pause that, plead that, because you don't want someone in your club that doesn't want to be there. You don't want to be seen as holding someone back. And as I said, Casey can be hard when she needs to be. So I think she's got the balance right. I can just see that the frustration now got to her that she's even. I think she said even earlier this year where someone was mentioned about the summer, and she admitted that I do not have the budget of the top three, and she said that consistently. So I just think she's had enough.
Okay, come back in. Good afternoon, Karen. Deborah's very elegant. Every single one of us loves Casey Stoney. Yeah. John Neville says Casey will be a hard act to follow for whoever comes in. I think next season could be a rough ride. We will be talking about that. I just want to, I read very early on after the women's team was formed and training and games were started, Casey chose to be separated from the men's side of things. She wanted the women's team to run completely independently from the men's side. Now, I've tried to find the article, but she was offered the cliff, and she didn't want the cliff originally. She wanted to be at LSV as her base. That's what she initially wanted. Things have changed. The world's moved on from then. And then, going on to Carrington. Carrington can be redeveloped. And as you said, Fiona, it takes time to do these things. Well, they've got to do it now sooner rather than later. If you watch the under-18s game, if anyone of you watched the under-18s game on Saturday, the women were training at Carrington. They have their own pitch there now. But a lot of the other pitches were being dug up already for next season. I think the problem with Carrington is there isn't enough space building-wise for them, in my opinion. Fiona, we can't talk about next season yet, but we can talk about this season. At December, we were top of the league, and there was a few people getting giddy, saying we're going to win the league, we're going to conquer Europe, and we're going to, go on and dominate women's football for a long, long time. Did you believe? Were you thinking that, or were you just, what? I'll take fourth or whatever or wherever it will be. And the second part is, does this set us back now, Casey going?
I didn't think we would win the league because I knew we had tough away games. We had to play the top three. I think away from home, we played them at home, and that's always a challenge against them. We were happy with a point against Chelsea on the first game of the season. So I was hopeful for top three, but I also, in the back of my mind, we'd got points, but we hadn't played particularly well, and at some point, that not playing particularly well will stop you getting the points. You can't always grind out a win, and I think kind of in that kind of spaces, even when we were dominating games, we weren't getting that many goals. And then obviously nobody can predict having all the injuries that we've had this season. That has been a tough one to take, I suppose. So yeah, it was nice to be top of the table, but I didn't think it would last that long. Yeah, I've forgotten the second part of the question.
Does this set us back, Casey going?
I think it does, because like we've just been saying, she is a person manager first, and then she thinks about the player as the footballing aspect. And if a manager comes in and they also want to be like that, they first of all have to get to know the players. Casey had the championship season where we should have won the league, even if the tactics were shocking most games and all the players didn't gel. So that then whoever comes in has to pick that up quickly. They may want to change style. Whenever you get a new manager, changing style, that takes a bit of time for the players to get used to get you results. I think it probably does set our 5-year plan back a bit. Will we get Champions League next season? I think that depends on how quickly the new manager can get used to the players, can get them playing the style they want, get the results that they want. Depends on the quality of the manager. If they come in and this is their first time managing a team, that might be more tricky. Whereas if we get somebody who's very experienced, that might help things. But that's no guarantee either way. Arsenal also we're getting a new manager, but it depends like who's known for longer. Maybe that impacts your transfers. Maybe Arsenal might have somebody lined up, but we might take some time. It's a difficult one to know, but I do think it sets us back. It'll be just difficult to tell how many years it sets us back.
Yeah, Iain, I guess, last week at the very end of the podcast, before it finished, Deb, one of the questions that was asked was, where do you guys think we need to strengthen next season? Going through the comments, and I'm going to, Namrata, I'll be having abandonment issues. Imagine how the players are feeling. Sang says, even without the injuries, the squad was too thin. Top three was in with your grass, and agreeing with Fiona, you had to grind out too many results. And a lack of a number 9. Fiona has great analysis. That's why she's a stato. So he's already set you back. Free agents are flying off the market. If that's what a good attack gets with in games without playing particularly well. Karen says, Casey leaving was such a shock. All the reports of the training conditions that the girls have been under is unreal. I feel like it'll be hard to get good quality players that the team needs. Sang says to Karen, this is my worry for you guys, especially when Arsenal are recruiting like mad. No matter which player would want to come, considering how wide the news of our pulling training pitch conditions spread. It's also not like we have Champions League to get them to make them come. And then Karen says, plus no Casey will be tough to bring in good players. Regardless of the training conditions, Iain, I want to put this to you. Regardless of the training conditions, regardless of what we're all reading, isn't playing for Manchester United still enough of a pull to bring in players?
It's a tough one because the pull of Manchester United is what the men have done over the years, not what the women have done. So the name has its pull, but does the team and what you're joining have the pull? If you could say, I'm going to be a Manchester United player training at Leeds Sports Village in public, because that's what they are. You could go up and stand and watch their training sessions day in and day out because they were on a public field, either on the pitches next to the car park, or they were on the Harriers athletic track, again, which has a public footpath down the side of it. Or you go to Arsenal or Chelsea or Man City, who all train in the men's first team training grounds. Or in the case of City, the women have their own dedicated section within City's training grounds. So the United name has its certain pull, but I don't think it's as big as a pull as people think it is.
Okay. I just want to... Okay, so Iain, let's get to the tough question. Fiona, I'm coming to you next. Can you see, because this was the question put to you last week, can you see the majority of this squad that we've currently got staying now that Casey's going? Or can you see a complete split?
The ones who are out of contract this summer, wouldn't surprise me if the majority go. Then you've got people like Jackie who've got 1 year left, and the next year will dictate whether she stays or goes. My gut feeling at the moment is she's probably not going to be overly impressed because she was probably promised promised things when she joined. And have we lived up to them? Probably not. I don't know, but I'm just, as a guess. So things would have to improve dramatically over the next year. Otherwise, by December, January time, she's free to talk to other clubs. But then you've got other players in the squad like Leah, just signed a new contract. Alessia only joined last summer. Mary's just signed a new contract. Anna's new. She's on a 2+1. Is she on a 2+1 or 3+1? I can't remember. So there are some players who we do have under contract for a good few more years. But the majority of the team, if you think the original 21, most of their contracts are up this summer. So that's the heart of the team. So we could lose a lot this summer. We really could.
Okay. Fiona, I'm going to come to you about the same point, but I want to come from it from a different angle. On Sunday, after the Everton win, and we did win a game on Sunday against Everton, it wasn't a great watch. We'll all agree on that. Casey said there will be players leaving in the summer, but it won't be a wholesale clear out. Now, after what we've seen, after what's happened today, those comments kind of are going, WTF moment, because this decision hasn't been made today. This decision has obviously been made for a while. So when you heard those comments on Sunday and you've heard what's happened today, where do you think that leaves the squad for next season?
It makes me think that for every player that's got an option, we've used the option if their contract's running out. Because that's the thing. If Casey was staying for a couple more seasons, as was in a contract, few more seasons, then yeah, you can take the risk with letting or changing a larger part of your squad because your manager's still the same. But if we're getting a new manager and we let go of, say, 5 to 10 players, however many you want to decide on, that's a lot of change. You're changing your manager. You could change your style. You're going to have to bring in lots of new players. Who's going to want to join a club if you don't know who the manager is yet? For me, that would be quite a risk. It might work. It might mean we have a great team and we progress really well. But I also think there's a very high chance that we wouldn't do that well. I think, well, like Iain said, there will be players that are under contract, and I imagine the club would only really take like a big transfer offer to sell some of these players. But I wonder if it puts some of the players might not want to hang around. I'm thinking players that really have bought in to Casey being the manager, and don't have such a love for the club. It was more because it was Casey. In my head, I was thinking, well, Jess seems to really love being managed by Casey, but she's also a United fan, so I think she would. She still want to hang around if the club want to keep her. I think it will be interesting to see who the club lets go. And I suppose we never really know, but whether or not it was the club saying we want you to leave, or whether it's the players saying I don't want to sign another contract with you, with Casey Con, I think that would be interesting. Obviously, we'd never know that. But I think there will be some players that will be sticking around, even if their contract was up. I think there will be some that will still want to be involved because we might be set back a few years, but it's still a long-term project. It isn't just flash in the pan kind of thing. So we'll have to see. I'm assuming some people who love a transfer window will be very excited by the summer potential.
Yeah, Right, Iain, just before we carry on. Oh, Ian's gone all sepia looking. Namrata, players would leave. They've already lived through a rebuild. They'll have to start again from scratch. I agree. Now, Fiona, going on to your point that you made just before, Jackie yesterday tweeted out, "I'm my club with a heart." Jackie is a United fan through and through. And let's face, going back to what we said before, the players just didn't find out today. They've probably known for a couple of days, maybe, about it. Karen then says, "Look at the situation at Arsenal. Road gone already on a hill. There's not re-signing until we know who the manager will be. We need to act quickly, but will we?" That's a question for the club. Hope we don't, from John Neville, hope we don't end up in a situation like Birmingham. We won't. Karen, up until the news about Casey and the treatment of players at practice ground, I really thought Tobin and Press were coming back next year. No, I don't really see that happening. And she then goes on to say, "Hope we don't lose a lot of players." It's tough because for all of us as fans, we've only ever known Casey as manager. We've only known her style of play. We've only known her as manager with Glenn Harrison, for a while, Willie Kirk and Glenn Harrison, Ian Wilcock by her side. And can you see, though, Iain, now, and this is the biggest question, and this is probably quite a big question, can you see Casey going, the complete breakup of that backroom staff? Because I'm going to come at this from a men's point of view. When Fergie left in 2013, all of his backroom staff left, and we saw what happened then. Can you see any of the backroom staff staying, or do you think they're all, or not?
The thing is, though, when you, as you say, a coach will have their, they normally work with the same people in the back room. I know that happens in men's game. I'm not sure about so much in the women's game, but I can't, with Casey gone, it wouldn't surprise me if Ian left. Kitty, not sure. But again, wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, it doesn't. If when Casey goes, it wouldn't surprise me. It will be a wholesale change. Everything will change, backroom and everything. And then it's going to be down to hopefully the players can gel with whoever comes in and replaces. But that, in the end of the day, that might be a good thing. We don't know. Is change actually something we do need? Everybody, yes, we would love to keep Casey, but could the change be good for us? Who knows?
Yeah, and actually, I want to come back to that point. Deborah says we need to know what the direction is with the new manager. Sean says established WSL players will be used to clubs changing managers, won't they? I mean, it does happen. Namrata need assurance we won't end up like Liverpool, but at least they won 2 WSL titles. Good evening, Andy. Andy says change is scary, but has also started to feel a bit necessary. Didn't expect it to be the manager, but unless we see an exodus, we still have a lot of talent to move forward with. And then John Neville goes, do you think Casey would have recommended a successor? I mean, these are great questions. Fiona, if you could, if you could predict the future on 2 points, one, could you give me this week's lottery numbers, please? I'm a bit, I need some. I've got the new kits coming out, so I need to get that sorted. If you could next season, because everyone's going to be talking now next season. Finishing in is it the minimum now we expect to finish in the top 4? Do you want the top 4? Do you want the new manager to go straight for the top 3? Or do you want to finish anywhere above the relegation zone? Do you not,
I think the new manager should be striving to get the top 3, but we also need to be realistic that a new manager can take some time, and so it might not be top 3 this season, but if we're building for top 3 next season, I would be okay with that as long as we showed a commitment, some sort of progression. I don't know, say the manager wants to bring in 10 players. I can't imagine bringing in 10 players this season, but strengthening important positions, maybe looking at the devs to see who can we bring through, all of these kind of things, so that the next season will be a further progression. But I think for this season for next season we should be aiming for a top 4. If we don't get top 4, it'd be disappointing. I think there would be a bit of kind of understanding if we were, say, 5th. But if we were any lower than 5th, I would be concerned. We might not necessarily get the results at the beginning of the season, but we need to be getting the results at some point, because otherwise there's no real showing that you did the season after that. If we don't get top 3 this season in the next season, I wouldn't be massively concerned as long as we showed progression. There was some of the things that Casey didn't do too well. We kind of changed them, so maybe we do have a plan B when we are not getting within a game, we're not getting the goals that we need, and maybe we can change it up. And I gotta remember, this is quite a squad which is mainly championship players. Yeah, we've got some star quality in there, but if, say, Tobin and Kristen leave, like most of us would expect now, I think there's that expectation that we're not going to sign 5 to 10 world-class players that might be needed for us to be challenging for the title, or for top 3, or whatever we're going for long term. So yeah, it'll be a tricky one to judge next season.
Okay, now I'm just going to go through the comments because I want to go back to the comment John Neville made before to Ian. Sang says top 3 or bust. He then repeats it again with capitals this time. Andy Slater, if the reasons for her leaving are as reported, I can't see her throwing somebody else into the ring. Okay. Karen, top 3. Sang, top 3 or I will taunt you mercilessly. Okay. Namrata, depends on who the manager is. If it's an established manager, top 3. If a relative experienced manager, consolidate 4th. And Karen says, if we don't get top 3 next season, we can't expect players like Jackie to stay. Ian, this is the point that John Neville made before. Do we think Casey will have recommended a successor? Now, there is a name in the comments. You've seen it, Ian, because I can tell by your face, and I know Fiona's seen it because she's laughing about it. So, Deborah put in.
No.
Deborah put in. Well, okay, right.
We need to have words about the committee here.
No, we'll talk to the manager. Hang on, hang on. Andy says, I had thought earlier, Deb, would he leave though? He's made progress. Deborah says, great point, good point, Andy. Cracking stadium is used as well. Yeah. Ian, I'm going to, besides Willie Kirk, because obviously he knows the infrastructure of United, I don't think it will happen. I am going to throw a name out there, though. That is a WSL manager, has a pedigree of experience in Hope Powell. Now, Fiona's shaking her head. Now, obviously, Ian, Hope Powell is the manager of your local team, literally around the corner from you. Do we need to go for that kind of? Do we need that kind of experience? Do we need to bring in a Hope Powell to maybe work alongside as
No, I see where you're going.
As Fiona said, do we need to bring in? Okay, go on.
No, you're right. Someone with Hope's experience would be ideal. I don't think Hope is that person. I don't think, if United approached her, I can guarantee you she'll take it. So she would say yes, because what she could do at United compared to what she could do here with Brighton and Albion is obviously chalk and cheese. Because United's budget will obviously be significantly bigger than what she's working with at Brighton. Yes, it's not as big as the top three, which is what we know from what Casey's said in the past. If you could get someone with Hope Powell's experience, then yes. But I don't think the way Hope sets her teams up, the way she plays, the way she's, managed the England side, and the way she's managed Brighton, to me is a bit dull. I'm honest. No disrespect to her. You can see what she's done in the game, but the way she sets her teams out to me is just boring, dull. But I
Right
can't
now,
get anybody to come in. That's the thing. Is
no.
no name.
Right. So, Kaz says Laura Harvey needs to come back to the UK. Willie Kirk, we're not doing that. Right. Fiona, shake your head. Phil Neville. All right. Can we compromise? Tracy Neville.
Well, she'd have to learn. I don't know how much she knows about football.
Big Sam. Big Sam. We won't get relegated. Well, no, we will do.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that doesn't work anymore.
How about Gemma Davis? No? Okay. Sean makes a cracking shout here. Shivy.
She doesn't want to be a manager, though, does she?
No, I was going to say her degree has something to do with management, is it?
And then Sang says, if you thought Casey was not tackling enough, you will survive Hope Powell's tactics. Not survive, I meant.
Precisely.
Fiona, we're coming up to an hour, and I want to take off your fan hat just for a minute and put your committee head on, because we do have to talk about this. We as committee members, we know Debs and Nat and Shane more recently have had a lot of communication with the club. One of the things about what's upsetting a lot of people, and by all the comments on here, is about what's happening regarding training. It's not being up to standard. It's not being, what they expected. We do have a meeting scheduled in the not too distant future with the club to follow up on things from our last meeting. Are you upset with the club's about the club's dialogue with us over this, or is this something that you kind of didn't expect? So you're going to kind of give them, an out for this?
I don't expect them to talk to us much about this kind of thing. About a manager leaving too much or giving us too much warning. I am more upset about the comments that are in the press about things like the training. But that's mainly to do with you made public promises or commitments, or however you want to say. You've made statements in the public domain about what you're going to do, and it's all well and good saying it, but now you need to do it. And so I think that's kind of where the Barmy Army's dialogue with the club is important, to make sure that they stick to their commitments, whether that be about the training facilities or about fans' experience at LSV or the communication or anything like that. That's kind of an important part of having a supporters club, to kind of be the voice of the fans, to hold your club to those kind of things. And I think that is important, and we need to make sure that we continue building our relationship with with the club, regardless of whatever happens with staff leaving or joining or that kind of thing. That we're not here to just make an improvement in this season. This is a long term thing that we want to do. We want to improve the match experience and supporting your club will improve that experience for everyone in a long term way. So it's about being open from both sides of the table. It's not just about us being open or the club, it's about everybody doing it.
Yeah. I think the point about the training facilities, and it's if we read the reports are true, we don't know they are true, we don't know the false at the same time. Up until this year, up until COVID hit, Casey was, and we do know this for a fact, Casey was happy working at LSV as the training ground. As Iain said, yeah, it's open public, it's open, people can walk through and watch them train. But Casey was happy. And then COVID's happened, and the facilities at Lee aren't. We couldn't. The gym. We had to use the concourses of the ground for the gym. Are we reading too much into the training bit? Is that just kind of a smokescreen, Iain, for you? Is the training bit, it's not really the main issue. It's an issue, but it's not the issue. It's other things that are out of everyone's control.
Yeah, it's probably an issue. If we go back to pre-COVID times, as you said, she seemed to be happy. I think the issue we then started, obviously, we're getting the injuries in training. So that probably has, put added weight on the training facilities. But my gut feeling is the majority is the board not giving her the backing she wanted. I don't think this comes from the Glazers. I think this is at the board. When the board set the budgets for the year for the teams. The Glazers don't do it. It's Ed and the board. Casey would have gone through John, say, this is what I need. And I'm sure, we've seen John work with Casey and how well they seem to work together. I just don't think Casey was able to get what she wanted or what she was promised. We would support her. If they were said, look, we'll always support you. If the club haven't supported her like supposedly they haven't, then this is the outcome to it. So I don't see the training being an issue. The one thing I will say, however, about all this is the timing of this is interesting. Why it's come out now before the last game of the season rather than after it, because all the talk up to the game now is going to be on Casey's departure rather than the game. I don't know if it's because the Telegraph broke the story this afternoon and it pushed the club's hand. But the one thing I do still think is the timing of this doesn't feel right either. I don't know why it's come out now.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I agree with. Right. We are going to wrap up in a couple of minutes. I'm going to jump through some of these comments. Deborah's on next week. No, that one. Deborah's on next week with Shane and Chloe. Join her. Maybe you'll be discussing transfers, managers, and games. Karen, Casey's standards club doesn't seem to have the same level in regards to the team. Deborah then says, believe me, there's a lot more that's not come out that will make you tear your hair out, that things have been bad. Respectfully, Marc, how can your team hope to compete with Big Three if your facilities are less and your budget is smaller? Namrata, Casey can have the pick of most teams she wants to manage. And she also said she had options if she left. And I agree the club wasn't supporting the women at the same level as the men's. And then that's from Marty. Good evening, Marty. Fiona, put your job head on for a couple of minutes. You've seen United's figures. They release them every year. There are public figures. Anyone can go and have a look at them. It's fair to say every women's team runs at a loss. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, pretty much.
So the budget this season, there's been no fans in at all. So saying that we have a small budget, we don't know what that budget is. We won't know we won't know what last season's budget is until we see next year's figures, will we? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, you're looking through all the comments, about the board not putting money in and everything like that. Casey has been backed. We can't say she's not been backed. But when you looked at the figures, did you see anything that worried you? Or were you like, no, because this is the way most women's teams would run?
I think I was actually pleasantly surprised because it's been mentioned a few times, like from, I think Ed said it in the past and a few others have said it in the past, we want our women's team to be sustainable and long-term. Chelsea throw millions of pounds into their women's team and they run at quite a big loss. And so if their owners suddenly decide, yeah, we're not giving you any more money, they're going to really struggle. But I also think if you don't invest, how do you expect to grow to get to that sustainable stage, whether that be throwing money at marketing or whatever you want to do, sign those big name players so that you attract more fans to their grounds. However you need to do it, I think you need to invest to get that. So I don't think any of the numbers particularly shocked me. I thought there were some numbers in there that showed that we are very supportive of our players. They get a decent wage or whatever. We don't have any situations where the players are basically part time and they can't focus purely on playing for us, as some other clubs have seen. But yeah, I think the one thing would be, we don't throw lots of money at it. That can be a good thing or a negative thing. I suppose it depends how you look at it. Personally, I'm okay with that if we do other things, so like making sure that the stadium or the training facilities are decent, throwing money that way. You won't see that reflected in the accounts that they publish necessarily. But we'll have to see whether or not signing Tobin and Kristen made an impact, because obviously their shirt sales were massive. That got reported in the press because they were doing so well. So it'll be interesting to see whether that gets then reflected in the accounts when that period is released.
Yeah, we're well over time, so we are going to wrap this up in a minute. Marty says Casey will be hot property. Sang says £4.5 million from Roman Abramovich every year for the Chelsea women. And Karen says room in the US is that San Diego team coming next year to the NWSL. So the talk is all of Casey going to San Diego. We didn't have time. We're not going to talk about the games, obviously, from Sunday, or we can't really look ahead to next weekend. I just want to really finish off from, and Marty just brings up the point, if Casey's gone, Kristen and Tobin are not likely to come back. I think we're all kind of resigned to that. I just want to kind of talk about very quickly, this week is Mental Health Week. Fiona and I, and along with Deborah, Shane, and Nat, we're all taking part in a thing called Terrace Talk. It's run by the Football Supporters Association. Guys, we're coming out of, some of us are coming out of the pandemic. Some places are worse than others. At a time like this, you don't need to be alone. Jump into the DMs of the BA. We'll be there. We'll answer your DMs however you want. If you want to join on our Sunday social, send a message to us. If you want to join us for the watch along, they are a lot of fun. Join us. Send us a message. We'll let you in. If nothing else, if they're a lot of fun just to watch Iain having a breakdown, that's really our main highlight of the week. And as Sang says, please talk to someone if you need to. You're not alone. Especially, I think we'll all be all right for the next couple of days because we'll all be digesting this for the next few hours and days and whatever else. Thanks, Iain. Thanks, Fiona, for coming on tonight. And join Deborah next week with Shane and Chloe, who, well, we don't know what they're going to talk about. Just before we go, Karen, love the Sunday social. So glad you guys have the social. It's something that we didn't think would still be going on. We thought life would be back to our normal, but I can see the Sunday social going on for quite a while yet. Take care from Debs, everyone. Ifa says, Marty says, thank you. Good night, Ifa. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And see you all soon. Take care. Bye.